I've contributed 2 pieces to this show. So this one is actually a piece that I did when I was at Moss Street Paint In, when I was doing a demo, and it is encaustic monotype. And it was a very hot day, very windy, it was very chaotic, and I think the result of it was very much like something melting. And I think that aesthetic makes me think of daydream or hallucination. So and I think I kind of tie that in with the psychedelia. And this one is actually was created with hot wax. It's an encaustic monotype. And this one I actually did a few years ago. And what is special about it is that the colors really remind me of psychedelia, and that's why it's called psychedelic. And again, it's, to me, psychedelia is very much an aesthetic. It's a very much the design, the colors, and the profusion of colors, and there's a sense of confusion too. And so these are my 2 pieces.
So my name's Jan Dong. I'm an abstract artist. I'm involved with the Psychedelia show because Efren and Irma invited me to the show. And thank you so much. It's a privilege to be at this opening and part of the Martin Batchelor Gallery. The inspiration for the Psychedelia painting was because I went and looked up psychedelic, and it was during the 60s drug era. And so from that, it was more, okay, how can I incorporate that with my abstract style? And so what I did was use neon paint colors. And from there, just put together some colors and the circle movement. As you can see, I do a lot of movement in my paintings, and that was the end result out of 4 paintings that I did, and 2 that I really liked.
Hi, I'm Ronald Markham. These are a couple of my new pieces for the Psychedelia show. We have You Can't Sit Down and Melodies in Gold. They're both mixed media pieces where I combine painting with collage, mostly collage, and I use source material from the 60s, including album covers, 60s maps, 60s advertising and products, things like that. And I also worked in some oil pastel and some paint and threw them both together, and I think they complement the show really nice.
Yeah, I'm Jason Balaam. This is my piece, Holographic Pyramids Were Seen Behind Closed Eyelids, which is a song lyric from one of my favorite songs. And this piece is, well, it's for the psychedelic art show, and the word psychedelic art is art derived from the psychedelic experience. And so I consider myself a psychedelic artist because I do quite a lot of psychedelics and draw upon it. This piece in particular comes from my experience of taking DMT on the side of a mountain in the Kootenays, and you won't be able to describe what you see in these psychedelic experiences because it's so overwhelming. I had a completely blue sky turn into not quite this, but similar, like temples appeared, blazing suns and chariots, and I could see every single molecule in the air in between everything. It was mind-blowing. And then when you come out of it, you're like, I'm never going to be able to recreate that, and it's a little overwhelming. But then what I discovered from it is if you don't concentrate on drawing directly at the moment and you just meditate on it, eventually the lessons from the psychedelic experience will seep into your art, and that's what happened here. I just sort of really remembered the stuff I saw, and just dug deep for it. Yeah, it's I don't really know how to describe it other than it's comes from like a place of pure love with psychedelic art. It's beautiful, and it's a path I hope to pursue for a long time. And and as I was saying before, this piece is kind of funny. I had a long time to plan for this piece, and I had all sorts of other ideas and I had all stuff drawn out, and then about 3 weeks before the show, I completely changed my idea and went with this. You know, like I said, the idea from the DMT just sort of bubbled up and canceled out everything else. And then it was kind of funny, I had it all drawn out in pencil, and then just to put the pen on the paper took me a week. I would actually sit in front of it for about 2 hours, and I would just pick out the colors. And then I was like, no, I'm too afraid I might make a mistake. And then finally I just took an orange and I just had to force it down and color and just dive into it and escape the fear. And I think it popped out wonderfully. Yeah.
It's Natalie Brake. I'm at the Psychedelia show at the Batchelor Gallery, which is a really awesome show. This is my piece. It was inspired by Alice in Wonderland. This is, I don't know his name, but I really thought he was whimsical and fun, and the birds are kind of cool. And this is a collage piece of acrylic pour that I pour and cut and then collaged onto there. Very fun project.
My name is Helen Rojak. Well, I did this 30 years ago. I did a series of faux cubic work, let's put it that way. And I was inspired by looking at the Blue Rider work. You know how they have lines going across and the color changes at the line? And I started first of all with a small watercolor, and then I did big watercolors, and in the end I wound up doing big canvases in this kind of cubist style. And it was really a lot of fun for me to do. And I have one of these pieces hanging over my fireplace at home. Hard to say much more than that, but it was a learning experience as far to making the rhythm in the work important, you know. So that's what it was all about, and that's what the cubist did. So that's all I can say. Okay?
Hey, Efren, thanks a lot. This is my piece. It's from 1969 or 1970 when the Year of Love was happening, and it has to do with the impact of tuning in, dropping out, and maybe dropping other things, maybe window pane, and how sometimes the environment was so black and white and sterile and things were happening, but inside your mind there was this incredible phantasmagoria of color swirling around. Thank you very much.
My name's Barb Weaver-Boston, and I was invited to participate in the Psychedelia show here from July 29th. And I created something out of the realm of my normal expression. I created 3 Barbies, smoke a joint, and go to a nightclub, in reference to how some friends would get together and enjoy a little bit of substance and then head out to the nightclub. And they are all dressed up, so they're not just going to any nightclub. And this is created through photograph. I have a collection of Barbie dolls that are all vintage and some modern ones. So I like to tell stories with them and do different photographic scenarios and just create different outfits and tell stories. So I do have a few Ken dolls, but they're not quite as interesting as the Barbies because they have better clothes. So this is my interpretation of some of the fun that we had during the 60s and getting dressed up and going out to party. And this is my iPad painting, and it refers to the freedom of expression through different mediums, and this is an electronic painting. So quite a bit different, again, of what I tend to create in my everyday series of art. But I like the theme. It creates new ideas, new expressions, and I'm glad to be a part of the show.
My name is Karima Heredia, and my 2 pieces over here are photographs that I did with, starting with some pattern of my culture, Mexico, and infiltrating that with my hands was me trying to advocate or illustrate the shadow we all have, this Jungian shadow, the concept of the psychological part of ourselves that we don't really know, and is this instinctual and dark side of humans. So that's what I was trying to portray in the background with some mythical creatures, and then trying to do the perspective, kind of create an illusion of the space, and the mixture of the pattern kind of infiltrates with my body, so indicating that the shadow is in our bodies, but we don't really see it.
Well, my inspiration was obviously the psychedelic theme, but I used to paint quite psychedelic, so I tried to basically incorporate all of my old psychedelic inspiration with my new sunset inspiration. So I tried to sort of merge like the colors of the sunsets I'm doing now with the old sort of psychedelic complementary colors, rainbow spectrum color combination, and I don't know, I think it sort of worked out. So yeah, it was basically my old and my new inspiration merged into one theme. Say that's it.
The inspiration, self-portraiture, something I've been doing for years, and the idea of psychedelic colors coming from the wools. So I love playing with wool and color, and there's a new line of wool colors you can see in the pieces. Yeah,
so these are my pieces here that I've entered into the Psychedelia show. And what I did first of all was I went and I looked up the definition. I'm all about writing, so I looked up the definition of psychedelic and psychedelia, and then I worked from there. But there was gave me a lot of flexibility still, and so I worked from the idea about sort of drug induced, the idea of it being trippy or mind altering to some extent. And then I just went and I wanted something that was going to be really trippy, so both of these. And then I work with dolls a lot because the dolls they come with a stereotype, and so it's easy to contrast them, so people will all of a sudden be shocked or pay attention, because that's not what Barbie's supposed to do. And so that's what I sort of always do with these. And this comes from sort of related to my marijuana gardening, which seems to attract slugs around the area. And so I just utilize these, and I just set up a tripod and with my Barbie, and I got a bunch of shots and put them together. And I just love the idea of these slugs that seem so organic and so, in some ways, sensual, but most people sort of icky. And so I like the contrast with that, and I love especially when I had the one going across her eyes, I knew I had the shot right there. Because it's almost like being blindfolded, almost like, does she realize that's slugs? And so it's really simple. And then from there you can take all sorts of implications from it. Whether you're looking at the Barbie smile, should she be smiling there or not? And then what are the implications? I talked to a lovely lady tonight who talked about with the language differences in Spanish, how the meaning of slug and stuff with males, there's a different connotation where it makes sense in the Spanish language. So that was very interesting for me to learn and hear that from her. So, and she had a lovely Spanish accent too. So. And then this one here is just basically, I got this large Barbie, and I like putting her next to the G.I. Joes, because women are usually, the Barbies come with irons and they come with domesticated, how they were supposed to be. And so I like, again, taking them out of their role. Well, this is making her the big, strong Amazon sort of woman. I did another one earlier with the same model, a similar model that I have, and it was Attack of the 50-Foot Woman poster. So this is sort of a different version of that with a cycling orientation. And then I added some text into it and sort of bringing the idea of the psychedelic posters from the old, when I was younger, where the bands would come into town and they always had these groovy psychedelic posters. So, and I got my groovy psychedelic button here too. I got that from another one of the artists here. So anyway, so that's where it comes from, and it's just really about taking something that's normal, that's a trope, and putting it into a situation where you wouldn't normally expect to see it, and that gets people's attention. And then you can throw your messages in around that and let people discover their own. So, and Barbie and all the dolls I use are very effective tools for that.
Inspire me, more than inspire me, was the using recycling materials like the gloves, the black gloves, are for, I use it for cleaning and represent too, all the garbage that the human being is producing. And the birds are recycling, but from a coconut. It's a coconut that I took the wings and the peak. So it means the nature doesn't need a human being, but human being, we need nature, and we are destroying all. So basically, is that worrying about our future and worrying about human being not being conscious about what we're doing. And the sculpture down is a sculpture made of fabric, silk, and stuffed, and it is like it's like the blood, the death. That at the same time, human being or what we're producing, we're hanging from our garbage, same plastic that we're producing. That I think that's all. And that is a poem that a friend of mine, a young friend of mine, Connor, wrote for me. And just looking at this, he started writing, and his words are very powerful. Probably you can, be near those words. And I think that's all.
Hello, Fly. I have a friend. Well, I lived through that era, and I made it out the other side. So this is a bit of a celebration that I'm actually still here. One of the things that I used to do is I worked in a high fashion men's boutique in Calgary. We were the first ones in Alberta, and so I would get a chance to wear all of this flamboyant clothing out of London and New York, and wander all over downtown Calgary and look silly, but totally enjoying myself. So that's why this one, the mod Android life, is sort of almost the way I used to look, except for the metal. And so it's a bit of a celebration of my past. So we've got all the high points of couture cities. There's Rome, there's London, there's where else do we have? Paris, there's Calgary. All the high points of great fashion. And so I made it I thought I'd make it like a magazine cover, so I could talk about things like climate change. It's not just about the weather. It's often about social mores and your position in the world and that sort of thing. So that relates to a story within this book that you'll never get a chance to read. And then about psychedelia, it came, it went, but is it back? So I wanted to just play with that idea that what comes around goes around. Things really don't change that much, And then the friend next door, Captain Question, he's always looking for the answers. And because of the 60s, we were told all the answers were either in marijuana or in LSD. So he's debating, he's got a cube in each hand, and it's like, which one should he take? Because one makes him larger and one makes him smaller, like the old Great Slick song. So I did that. That's why I did that one. A lot of the symbols from the 60s that I really enjoyed and had fun with, even into the 70s. Gave me a chance to reuse them again and experience them. Just the art. Not the drugs. No. Never the drugs. He said with a sly smile. Yeah. So and then when I was asked to be in the show about psychedelia, I had no idea what other people would translate that word, how they would represent it. And when we came down to drop our pieces off, there were no other pieces here yet. So I had no idea what was in the show. So when we came in, it was like walking in fresh into a new show. Everything was brand new, nothing I'd seen before. So it was really fun. It was a good evening. And I think everyone totally enjoyed themselves. Concentrating on wine instead of, the other stuff. But it was fun. So that's the reason why these pieces are done, is because of the request to be in the show. And then harking back to my, not adolescence, but young adulthood. 1965. Yeah. So. And of course, really nice to see everybody else's work. And it is amazing just how diverse this group is. One word sparked it, and then just how they ran with all of that. It was really quite exciting. Yeah. And I'm happy I was in the show. Because I am getting a little long in the tooth, but I still have a memory. So that's my little story.